Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.
It's The In Show, Australia's only show dedicated to innovation from Adelaide, Australia, and across the globe.
Well, hi there, it's Troy Sincock and David Grice talking innovation on The In Show. And believe it or not, I'm still flying solo. Troy's just off gallivanting around the countryside doing who knows what, but I'm sure we're going to hear all about it next week. And this week, Troy and I caught up with Craig Swann, the founder of Loop Labs.
Craig, tell us about this incredible idea.
Yeah, it's actually a long time coming, not to dig too deep into the past, but I was fortunate to have been brought up in the 90s with the university system in Canada, where the web was first kind of coming out. But I was also an avid Deadhead. I'm not sure if the Dead made it to Australia, but the Grateful Dead was certainly a very cosmic band that really shared a lot of principles of social music sharing. It was just an amazing community that sort of rallied around music. And I guess there was a bit of an epiphany one night in a drum circle after the show where I kind of saw the future of what this web was going to be and how that could sort of coalesce with what music was and the social sharing that was a part of that community, which actually led me to drop out of university way too early because they couldn't get the internet or the web anywhere off the university system. But it set me on this path of wanting to get down and explore the ability for people to connect through music being the most amazing thing in the universe.
So tell us about Loop Labs. What actually is it?
It's a cloud-based music platform, but we really look at it from the perspective of, and really just some backstory. I mean, it first launched in its first version back in 2000, which in internet days is just forever ago. But it led me into a path of really licensing and creating a lot of marketing campaigns with a lot of top global brands to be able to sort of attract their audience through music. So I learned a lot from that consumer-facing aspect of creating very simple, easy-to-use tools, but also as a musician realize that music really is math. So there's a lot of amazing things you can do, which if you use math can take away a lot of the sort of barriers to music. So if you think about the piano as an interface, to me it's a terrible interface because I watch children tinkle on the white keys and think this is kind of cool. Pinky rubs off on a black key, dissonance, okay, what just happened? I'm confused, maybe I'm not good. And it just puts this fear into the idea of making music. And I think as an interface, we can take that away today where everything is basically a white key. So what we do is we have a massive catalog of royalty-free loops and samples that you can use. But I guess the secret sauce is that everything gets matched when you drag and drop it together to be put into the same tempo, but also kind of harmonically transposes it into the relative key, major or minor. So really, no matter what pieces of music, whether it's some weird Afro-Latin rhythm with some jazz piano with a deep house bass line, you can drag these things together and they all get put into the same key, the same tempo. So it takes away all those things where I kind of look at it as being that gateway drug to music for a lot of people. We're like, oh my God, I can't believe I just made like a banger like in a couple of minutes. And so it's really about that empowerment of that, but it's also very collaborative. It's got this built-in chat functionality. I guess going back to the idea of how do we make music together, because I think a lot of producers are making music by themselves these days. I think the joy of music is to express and share it together. So it's really set out to break down those barriers and give everyday people music-making superpowers, if you will.
And is it how's it been taken by the music industry and the music community? Like, has there been any sense that, hang on, this is taking some of the craft out of making music?
You always have those conversations, both with artists who we talk to about remixing, who think this is a piece of art that should never be touched. Again, we're really looking at the 95+% of people that have never played music at all and trying to be that sort of holding hand to get to that point. But I think, to me, the biggest opportunity is you look at, there's been a massive transformation of consumers into creators in the last 10 years across everything. And people are creating websites, they're creating stores, they're creating video, they're creating all these things. But music, and I joke around when I talk to industry people, it's like the music industry is barely ahead of the Amish in terms of adopting technology. It's just really has been just a laggard in doing so. And I think at the expense of a lot of people that are just creators. Even if you ask a kid today, a lot of people don't know how to make music. So I think the real opportunity when you see the fastest sort of growing form of media, which is online video, that needs music. I mean, you guys have bumpers even for the show. There's music you insert into everything. So there's a real need for music as a part of creation in general. So I think overall, people realize that's where it's going. And I think if you look at what happens with YouTube and SoundCloud, it's user-generated content. I mean, this derivative remix world is that's what happens with everything. We are living in a meme, right? And music just needs to be a part of that. So I think we're seeing people realize and understand that this is the direction that it's going. So I look at it as like I saw that wave 25 years ago, and I've just been waiting. And I feel like that perfect storm has come where all these things have allowed technology to sort of make this idea happen.
Tell us about that journey from 25 years ago when you first came up with this concept and the frustration that you may have felt just sort of leading up to the now, which is when you've got it out there.
It's been very frustrating to sort of go through that. And I think what it did was it forced me to really grow a lot of skill sets. I mean, I jumped on to the web in the mid-90s. There was nowhere to learn it. You basically, for 6 months, didn't get off of the internet. You learned HTML, you learned JavaScript, you learned these things. So I've always been self-taught in everything from music to technology. I've never worked for anyone, so it's been this constant journey with this goal in mind. But like I sort of mentioned earlier, when I first got that first prototype in 2000, which made the internet's first experience for that, it just received a lot of success, thankfully, where a lot of these brands would come inbound. I was very fortunate to have Steve Jobs actually demo Loop Labs when he launched a Safari browser. And they don't tell you that he's going to do that when that happens, and you sort of get like a lot of people contacting you very quickly, wanting to leverage what you're doing. So thankfully, I didn't have to work hard to get it out after that happened. But certainly working with the music industry, which is where I think the real opportunity is for this kind of technology, it's been very difficult. I mean, I think the old school mentality when it comes to the music industry is, oh, we got our finished master, thank you, we don't need the tapes, that whatever, they're sitting in a basement, some guy's basement, because they figured they never would need those again. But now the opportunity to create interactive content with music, I mean, music never open source, music never got crowdsourced like all other elements of the internet did. So now a lot of these labels are scrambling to say, where do we get these stems? Where do we get these acapellas properly? Where do we do these? Because now we can crowdsource this with these new models and technologies to create new derivative work, which is in line with the sort of culture's doing, and find new products and services which don't exist, which is direly needed, certainly for the music industry.
Do you see this as being, is this just the starting point for people, as they are beginning to see that they could have a life in music, as you said, as a creator? Or do you think, is it possible that an artist might just use this platform for their creativity?
Yeah, this conversation happens a lot. So certainly this is meant for people that are sort of dipping their toe in the music production waters. The important thing to realize, it's really a multi-sided platform. So I'm not trying to convince someone that uses Ableton or FL Studio or Logic to say, hey, use this tool, which is a baby version of what you're used to. If anything, what we're doing is opening up a marketplace for producers and artists that are creating a lot of music. I have a lot of producer friends, and they've got so much music that they've never placed with an artist, so just sitting on their drive, growing digital dust. So the opportunity for them to sort of put these in sound packs for these new kids that can't play instruments but want these fresh sounds, now you've opened up a marketplace where you've got millions of kids who now want to create music. They need new material. Now artists can say, hey, I've got tons of beats I've never placed. Why don't I put them on this platform, whether it's for free and it's a way to get exposure for the producer, or whether it's as a product. That's the way that I see leveraging and talking to people that do have skills or are already in the industry of leveraging a platform like this.
So is it sort of an extension of sampling in some ways?
I think so. I mean, the key thing that from the get-go I've been focused on is to make sure that all the sounds on there are royalty-free. That's 100% important because we've not allowed uploading for that reason. I mean, someone could get a leaked new Rihanna track, put it on there. It could be great for the platform to blow up the way that a YouTube or a SoundCloud would have blown up, but it puts us at a disadvantage because I really feel that the opportunity is if I can get clean content from content owners in the industry and pair it with royalty-free content, then every single piece of content created can be monetized. So we're working with interesting companies in the States that have got clearances for remixes, a company called Dubset, where they can put that into DSPs, whether it be Spotify or Apple Music or Deezer or these services. So now there's a new model where if you're an artist that's now making your only digital money on a stream of one single track, and you decide, hey, I'm going to open source it into pieces and crowdsource it to the world of my fans, now you've got tens of thousands of new pieces of long-tail content being created that ultimately in the future can go onto streaming services. So you've multiplied your potential earnings off that one piece of content. I think a lot of the forward-thinking artists really see that as like, wow, someone might do that cool, trap version of my thing that hits in the summer, and now I've just 2x'd my revenue forever based on the royalties on that. So I think there's some really interesting models, but like we talked about, people in the industry have been very cautious. They're happy with their corner offices and not wanting to take the risks on some of this stuff and internet technology, but the opportunity is there for sure.
And what I love about what you're doing is you're making it really extremely accessible to anybody who has an idea or wants a desire to even just get involved in music in some way. And, from little kids through to, retirees, potentially there's people there that can jump on your platform and just create something.
I mean, that's exactly what we've seen. We've seen literally 7-year-olds to 70-year-olds on the platform. I mean, because it's got chat built in, I spend almost every night talking to the community and learning about them slowly. But I don't even think they realize that some of the remixes they're doing are generations apart. Like, to me, I know because I know everyone. But it's amazing, and that's the kind of inbound that we get from people saying, "You've changed my life." At 60, 70, never thinking they can make music, and now, I mean, the most prolific person on our platform, I believe, is 70 years old, and they've, I think, created 600 tracks.
Wow.
And they're monster tracks. I mean, they're real, like, they're tracks. And this person just found something, and they just went all in. And it's just been amazing to see that empowerment. That's what I enjoy most about the platform.
Did you ever think that you would actually get that out of what you've created?
Maybe not as many of the 70-year-olds that are on the platform, but I know certainly with the younger generation, they're sponges, right? And they're picking this stuff up, but they don't yet have the tools that are quite as easy as what we've built. So I knew that was going to happen for sure. But I think I've been surprised at the eclectic nature. And what I'm really also quite proud of is the fact that it's about 30% plus female, and that is kind of rare for this kind of a product in this kind of a space. And I think that's one of the reasons that's made the platform so positive. We've never really had any issues internally with the sort of the community aspect of it. There's no real flaming or trolling or anything else. It's just very positive feedback. People are remixing, giving critiques and comments. So, I mean, I just couldn't be happier in terms of what we've built from that community aspects. It's been completely organic.
And how many users are on the platform currently?
So we're getting close to knocking out 500,000. So.
Wow.
And that's just in under 2 years. And again, just sort of it's beta. I mean, I guess, Gmail was beta for 5 years, so I don't know how long we'll keep that tag. But it's just been kind of just watch what happens, not really doing any marketing and just letting it grow organically. And I think that's been the best way for us to learn and figure out what are the things that people want. Although a lot of people are saying, why aren't you monetizing it? And it's a good question. There's lots of great ways to do it, but I think it's about being strategic and growing the community first.
Do you see it making its way into schools in any way? I mean, I asked that question just because I know for my schooling, we really weren't exposed to music in a taught sense. It was, would be in audiences, watching music. And it wasn't really until I got into high school that, you had to do music. But of course, like you said, it's such a barrier for those of us that hadn't touched an instrument or our parents hadn't had musical backgrounds or anything. You really found yourself almost like 8 years behind everyone else before you'd even touched a piano. Can you see it working its way into education anyway?
It has. I mean, we've done really very little proactively to push it out there, but I get a lot of emails from teachers. I've done a lot of talks going to schools to sort of elicit feedback, but also show them ways that they can leverage the platform. Because for a teacher, here they have a completely free platform. There's no software installed. They don't need to get their IT guy to do anything. There's no cost involved. And I think what's most unique about our platform is that there's 70,000 samples across every genre available there. So even the software they might have, getting the sounds is a very tricky thing. So it's certainly been embraced. And I have yet to really speak to any educators here in Adelaide, but certainly very interested. I mean, for me, the feedback of that, because it's collaborative, a lot of the feedback we've gotten is that a lot of kids are very introspective and maybe not so outgoing, but in the collaborative setting, teachers have seen students really, they excel at making music, and now they're being accepted by their peers because they're like, wow, he's making killer beats, and it's really given them a sense of empowerment that they didn't have. It's a new voice that they have, and that's one of the really exciting things I think that music can do, is bring out that personality in people that otherwise might feel like withdrawn from connecting with their peers.
So is what you were so you see it really as a starting point. So the idea is just to have someone see within themselves that they've got enough creativity. If they just learnt some other applications, they'd be able to take those steps to Ableton and things of that nature.
We have a lot of. I mean, we just actually pushed out our first artist onto Spotify, and the platforms are they put together an album, and we wanted to support it. So there's certainly a lot of people where they're moving past the platform, which excites me. Like, they're getting into people that have actually wanted to learn instruments, which is amazing. They want to play guitar. They want to learn to play keyboard. They're moving on to FL Studio and these other sort of tools, which is fantastic because the story will always be I started on Loop Labs, and I would love to see them get to a level, and we're talking to something now where they will now start putting their own content back into the system. So it's always open to have all levels of people participate, whether it's a top-tier artist wanting to remix with fans, whether it's just producers that want to put sounds into platform to get awareness for their own work, or whether it's a new person coming in just to create, music for their skate video they're going to put on YouTube. It's all about that full spectrum.
That's a wonderful application too, isn't it? When you think of, people that are doing videos and that kind of stuff, and they need a soundtrack, and then they're dealing with all sorts of copyright issues, and next thing you know, they can, create something that suits the mood, and they're fully owning the process from beginning to end.
Some of the applications we're working on right now are very focused on serving that. I think the opportunities to serve really a social media audio utility, it's the one thing missing. If I could just create a soundtrack to my 17.4 second Instagram video like this, and we've had some talks about the capabilities of machine learning and some of the interesting stuff that can do with musical AI. I think there's tremendous opportunities there, and we're very focused on getting some of those ideas out in the near future.
It really sort of is applying the same sort of thought process. How people will call themselves a graphic designer, even though they haven't been to graphic design school, call themselves a photographer because they have a camera. You're sort of doing the same thing for music, really. Like you're just allowing people to get some stuff done that otherwise was a barrier. Yeah. You'd have to rely on someone else to help you out, and sometimes you wouldn't be able to find that person.
And I think for a lot of the other media, hardware solved a lot of that. Video was just press record. Even with Instagram, it was really the camera that was available inside your pocket with some software filters, but it was really just, I've got a great quality camera here right now. But music, it's like, okay, there's not a one button, really press music, make it. So we're trying to figure out what's the least amount of presses and that interface that can do that. But I think exactly what Instagram did for photography or what YouTube did for videos, we see our platform as being able to fill that musical need, because there's still a void. It's unbelievable to me, being in it for so long, that it's taken this long to get even close to doing it. But like music is, I don't have to talk to you guys, but it's the most amazing thing. It just connects us all. So yeah, it's exciting to fill that void.
What would it take? It makes lots of sense the way that you're talking right now about this, being the Instagram or the YouTube of music. What would it take for that to happen?
Us launching the application and getting it out there. I think, especially what happened with Musical.ly, and, you see these music social things, but they still rely on licenses. I think what's really interesting is the fact that Facebook's making a move to make deals with the labels to be able to allow content to be there. I think if we see that happen where it's also made derivative via stems, then there's going to be tremendous opportunities where people can create customized versions. We work with a lot of DJs and producers on the platform, and the one thing, if you guys ever go out to the clubs, it's like that same track is just always being played everywhere. You have to differentiate. So tools like ours allow you to go in there and make your own little tweaks of things very easily, so now you can stand out and create your own kind of mix of it very easily without having production skills if you are a DJ. So I think it's just a matter, it's going to happen, it is happening. I think a lot of people are focused on licensed music, and I think that's been a barrier because working with traditional industry it is brutal. I don't recommend anyone that wants to do a startup for music using licensed content, just don't do it.
And so do you feel like you're part of a race to get there?
No, if it's a race, it's a marathon. I've been here doing this as long as anyone, and it's a graveyard of companies that have come to do it. I think everyone tries to serve a different audience. Ultimately, I think you have to have that real vision and intent of what it's meant to do. I just don't think of it as a race. I'm just a very collaborative person by nature and invite any cool ideas from anyone, but yeah,
it's remarkable that you're playing such a long game. You're
long game.
Yeah, in speaking.
Tell my family that.
But what has had you remain so focused? What has had you not abandon this at some point? I'm sure plenty would have dipped their toes in the water at some point and just gone, this is all bit.
It's been I'll be honest, it's been a sacrifice. A lot of people think it's kind of crazy, but it really goes back to, there was a true epiphany when the idea hit me, and I really saw the future. Like, I saw where this was going to be, and I'm devoted to seeing that happen. Primarily because I think in the world that we've seen kind of happen and sort of evolve in the last couple decades, it's very divisive. And again, I was living the last 8 or 9 years in America, where I think you see a lot more of that than you do here. And music is the one thing that unites us. And I always think about a platform like this where, if you've got some guy that's making beats and he's out somewhere in the middle of the world, and something happens terrible there, all of a sudden there's a new context. Like, whoa, that's where my boy was in Paris. Like, is he okay? And these things take on a new meaning. And I think there is nothing that will truly overcome everything. I believe, and I'm a hippie at heart. Is music is the ability to us to really truly connect. So if I can build a platform that will connect people, then I think that has one of the best shots of making us cohesive as a planet, as humanity. And so in some big, crazy, tripped-out way, part of it is about having a real impact in making that happen, even if it's through what people see as just this cloud platform.
So you're Canadian-born.
Yep.
You've lived and worked in many other countries, and you now find yourself in Adelaide. Tell us a bit about your journey and what you've done through the process of moving out of Canada and ending up here.
Yeah, so, I mean, certainly spent most of my formative years, I guess, my early formative years in Canada. As a result of sort of becoming more of a thought leader in interactivity and in music, it led me to a lot of opportunities speaking around the world and doing a lot of talks. I gave my first talk in Spain, met a beautiful woman there. That took me into Spain. You know, people thought I was crazy then. I left my agency, didn't speak a lick of Spanish, barely knew this person, but, you know, just one of those things you just know I have to pursue this. And that took me to Barcelona for some time. And then really, you know, New York is where music really happens from a business level. And so decided that if I'm going to go there and start establishing those connections, it's going to be important for me to do that. But spent, you know, well, the good years, I mean, the Obama years, literally I bookend the Obama years in New York and spent that time there. And that was really just, you know, getting to understand the industry. I mean, I understood the technology, and as a musician, I understood music. But the complexities of publishing, and, you know, I really needed to be there to understand how that system works, which I got out of it. But ultimately, a couple of kids, I've got 2 American kids now, with an Australian and a Canadian. We have 2 American children. But just my partner never really getting a chance to spend as much time here, and obviously lots of people want to see the kids. It just felt, you know, it's time to leave America. I'd accomplished what I needed to get done there. To be honest, things are just kind of getting crazy. And with 2 kids, and as a Canadian, growing up lots of space as you do, it's like, how can you put them in Manhattan? It's a wonderful place in many regards, but as a child that grew up running around in parks and driving bikes all over the place, you can't do that there. And so we decided to sort of spin out here, and really didn't have an attention for how long, but I've only been here, you know, a matter of weeks, but it's been really inspired by the trajectory, I think, that South Australia is on, and the people I'm meeting are super interested, and there's just a lot of interesting ideas and opportunities, and I'm looking forward to explore lots of interesting things that you guys are doing.
So that's a really interesting thing, you know, because we're obviously here from Adelaide, and we don't generally see what we're doing from an outsider's point of view. So you coming in, what was your first impression when you first came into Adelaide?
Okay, this is smaller. It's slower. I mean, I still had that New York hustle kind of going.
Yeah.
I think what I like about it is certainly that it's being small. There's a sense of community. Everyone kind of knows everyone. I mean, for good or bad, I'll learn to discover whether it's a good or bad thing. But I think, you know, having friends that are kind of a part of stuff that's in space related, and seeing what's happening here, seeing the opportunities I think that's happening just with deep tech, particularly here. Is just really fascinating. What I'm getting a sense of, and it's very early, that this is obviously a very academic location. So there's a lot of amazing technology, but I'm not so sure there's the equal balance of people that know how to communicate that, storytell around that, create product and market that. And so that being a personal interest of mine, I'm really interested to talk to, you know, fellow super nerds that are doing awesome stuff that I probably can barely understand, but figure out how does that turn into something that could be really marketable and have impact, because so one thing you learn when you're kind of in the heart of New York is just that magic of storytelling, pitching, and how do you sell stuff and position it. And I've only been to one event where I've got to see some of that. But I think that's one of the interesting opportunities for me, is to figure out where's that balance of these ideas and the technology being spun into a story that people can buy into and make this really grow and accelerate.
And I think that's one of the reasons why we began the in-show, is because what we felt in Adelaide, well, from what we were seeing in innovation, that we were very poor at telling our stories. And that's why we wanted to create this show, to create a platform for those people to tell their stories. And so it's really interesting to hear that, you know, somebody fresh into Adelaide is actually seeing that already, which is fantastic. I mean, it sort of validates why we're doing what we're doing.
Absolutely. So the the going overseas and, you know, what you've done with your life is quite a regular occurrence in the chats that we we have with people that are, are really innovating. Do you think if you had the same idea and you worked at a distance, what would that have meant for you? Would you have made less progress, or would you be less connected? Would you not know the right people?
I mean, I don't know. I mean, almost the most successful years with the technology and was licensing it was really when I had sort of abandoned my agency, my office, my team, and sort of soloed it in Barcelona. So I think I've always worked remote. I just grew up. I mean, since the '80s, I've been online. So I'm just very used to just working like that. Mm-hmm. So I don't think it's necessary to do a lot of stuff. I think for music it was. I mean, to be able to go to LA and sit with like real producers, people in the industry, in the studios, and really get a flavor and build that network was super valuable, as well as that network, on the East Coast where it's all, publishing labels. I mean, those are important relationships to have and to nurture, certainly from understanding that perspective. But I think for any idea, which is what's so amazing about, and I saw Tom Hadju talk about, the super cities of the future and what's really required, and really a connection to the internet with an infrastructure of education, talent, and ideas. It can happen anywhere, and that's what's amazing about the internet, is a distributed manner of it. So I don't think I had to be anywhere. I've moved around a lot during my travels in this one sort of thing I've been focused on, but and that's why I think there's a real interest here in little old Adelaide, the town that is not a town, is that there's so much stuff that I didn't know coming in here. Like I've just been constantly schooled on what's going on here, which makes it more and more exciting. But I don't think majority of people. I mean, my impression 10 years ago when I first visited, it was not what it is now. So I'm very thankful that either a lot has happened, which it probably has, but also that I've had a better opportunity to really understand the opportunity here, because there's exciting things. I'm just hoping to find ways to bring some value to it.
Fantastic. Well, thank you so much for joining us on the In Show, Craig Swann from Loop Labs.
Pleasure. Thanks, guys. It was a great talk.
For more innovation, check out the inshow.online. You can subscribe to the podcast on iTunes, and please rate us 5 stars if you like what you're hearing. And we're also on Facebook and Twitter as well. Tomorrow we hear from Robin Freeth from TEDx Adelaide about what's in for him. And on Friday, join us for some inspiration from Jana Matthews.
The In Show Interview, brought to you by Adelaide Smart City Studio. Subscribe to the In Show podcast on iTunes. A Dave and the Beanstalk production.
Are you a podcaster? Maybe you've got that big idea and you're looking for a network to join. The multi-award-winning Ozcast Network can get your content to eyes and ears all over the world. Join now for the first month free, and you could be featuring this sound at the beginning of your podcast.
Ozcast.
Simply head to ozcastnetwork.com for details.